Good afternoon. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, we have individuals attending remotely. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. And please make sure you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak, so the public that is participating knows who is speaking. This is critical given our remote participation and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. I'd ask the clerk to announce the meeting and call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mayor Alvey. Good evening. You are hereby notified that I have called a special session of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, to be conducted virtually on Thursday, October 28, 2021 at 5 p.m. for an ARPA discussion and update. Roll call. Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Bilbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Burroughs.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Mayor Alvey.
Here. All right, so we are here for an American Rescue Plan Act discussion and update. I'll turn it over to Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Doug Bach, County Administrator. So tonight, this is a follow-up from our last session when we came together. Ms. Hand led us through an exercise where we were able to talk about and kind of build toward our ideas and thoughts where we want to invest the American Rescue Plan dollars that are still remaining, which is the bulk of those. Tonight, we want to get into that same follow-up to that discussion and narrow the view down a little bit more. It's our objective to come out of this discussion with really refining and being defined exactly what areas where we want to invest that money, and then be able to identify the next steps. So we'll be work with the commission to take it from that point and how staff can answer questions as we move from that point forward and additional input from the public. So with that, since we've been through this I will turn it over to Ashley Hand, who's been working on this with Ms. VonAchen, and Ashley's going to take us through some additional steps to remind us where we were and where we're leading up to today. Ashley.
There we go. Thank you, everybody. Very happy to be back. My name is Ashley Hand. I'm the Director of Strategic Communications. As Mr. Bach mentioned, this is a continuation to the conversation we had just a few weeks ago regarding what we envision for the future of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas post-pandemic. So we spent some time over the last session kind of talking about your values and vision as well as goals, which we've refined for review today, and hope to continue to push towards the idea of preferred strategies or how you would like us to tackle this vision moving forward. But in order to kind of do that, many of you shared, wanting a little bit more context to the conversation. So Kathleen VonAchen is here to jump in if I get any of this summary inaccurately, so please bear with me. But we wanted to kind of walk you through, so we've walked through this process so far to start to define this value, vision, and goals, really trying to understand kind of how you want us to prioritize spending in general, but ARPA dollars specifically for both immediate needs and future plans. As well, kind of starting to understand the role that you envision the unified government within the community of capacity in terms of partnering, building other capacity within our organization or within our community as a whole, as well as identifying other opportunities for funding. Because I think it's important to note that we recognize there's a lot of other funds coming from the federal government in the near future, and having this kind of cohesive understanding of how you would like to take your commission priorities into the next era, this post-pandemic Wyandotte County, can really help us with the near-term prioritization. And then establishing that clear return on investment. We heard time and again at the last session how important it was to really understand the impact these dollars make, what types of impacts they're making, and tracking that so that we can really understand how these investments works. And ultimately, I think hearing a lot around collaboration and exploring innovative solutions. So something that we want to talk about in the strategy section this evening is some of the kind of leading edge ideas or new ideas that we could potentially introduce into our community as we plan for our recovery, so that we might try something new, create a new norm. But of course, taking a step back, I think it's really important to note that the commission priorities are still kind of the North Stars for this framework for the American Rescue Plan as it relates to our community. This is the set of commission priorities that you've established. And we do a lot of tracking in terms of our community survey to how we are addressing these various issues. But most importantly, the Finance Department has been spearheading a priority-based budgeting approach, which really helps align the spending to these commission priorities, which is really essential. There are a lot of needs across the community and take a variety of forms, and your priorities help us with that. And now this priority-based budgeting helps to align more dollars to where the greatest need is based on those priorities. And finally, this workshop will help us kind of amend that budget process, that priority-based budgeting approach to the recovery itself and how we spend as we look forward to the end of this pandemic. I think it's important to note we're still in the midst of a pandemic. There are still immediate needs and an ongoing pandemic response, which you have provided some initial funding for, whether it's our vaccine centers, et cetera. So those are things that are ongoing as we have to acknowledge that, unfortunately, COVID-19 is still here. So one question that I've received from several commissioners was what other funds are out there in terms of what we've received so far in terms of COVID-related funding. And so, as you are well aware, there was money last year through the CARES Act. It took a variety of different forms. And so the total over the last year was about $43 million. And then there was other COVID-related funds, which we've also seen, including the Community Development Block Grant monies and others. So I just wanted to pause here in case there was any questions for Kathleen from the commission on any of these numbers.
Yes, Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. I was curious if Kathleen could spend a minute on each of the topics, COVID-related funds, what we spent those on, if they're spent, that sort of thing.
Well, the top part is the 2020 COVID-related CARES Act funds. And so, and they total $43.6 million in total. Of the 43.6, 37.3 million of it is CARES Act dollars that came from the governor's Spark task force. And then the other 6 million are various other COVID-related grants that were received and spent in 2020. So all of those funds, all the 43 million was spent in 2020.
Okay.
And then down below are the grants that we've received through the Community Development Department. And they total, as you can see, 7.7 million. And Wilba has talked with you about those. Those are the only grants that right now related to COVID that are available to be spent that we have in hand that have been awarded. So far, because with our new grants management division and the fact that we just brought on this terrific consulting firm to assist us with grant writing, we expect to get more grants as they come in. So. Any other questions?
I don't see any, Kathleen. Oh, Mr. Burroughs.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner Burroughs, at-large District 2. Kathleen, I think it's important that how much do the administration fees, administration costs, what's the allowable administration cost for receiving these funds?
Well, so I don't know specifically what the administration allowable costs are for the home and emergency solutions and CDBG grants, but I know they're pretty minimal, and of course we wouldn't exceed what's allowed. The amounts that were the administration of the largest funds in 2020 for the CARES Act funding just entailed the internal team that we put together to help facilitate the application process for all of our nonprofits, and then some internal staff for putting together the budget and presenting it. That whole team that Crystal Sprague led. So as well as a bunch of people in finance, but the cost was minimal compared, to the total dollars spent. So,
Well, I mean, there has to be a percentage of something that we can put our finger on. So if we're looking at hypothetically $37 million, and the administration fees can take up to 15% of that, hypothetically, we know what dollars are set aside. What they're used for is something else. I'm just curious as to what is an allowable administration costs for these funds, because it gives.
I would be happy to provide that to you. I just need to look it up. I don't have the number. It's not. I'm sure it's not even close to 15%. So not even close. So.
But if I may, a follow-up question. Any administration costs that have been utilized to date have been used to hire the staff that you referred to earlier, if I'm to understand you correctly in your presentation.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Commissioner, just this is Doug Bach, County Administrator, just further clarify, we moved staff from other areas where they were working within our government into the CARES team to work for that. So we were able to put their salaries against the CARES funding when we went for that. But we didn't hire anyone additional. It was staff that was moved from other areas of operation into that, and then they've since been moved back into other areas.
And Doug, I anticipated that was the case. I was just kind of curious because it's cost savings to us by just doing that, and it comes out that we can call it administration costs. So I just want to ensure that we are on the same page when we talk about the cost savings, cost avoidance, because there should have been savings on our regular budget because we weren't paying personnel out of our regular personnel funding.
Yes, sir, and there was.
And
Thank you.
This is Alan House. Just the allowable under CARES was 5% for admin. That was the statutory allowable percentage for administrative expenses. We can get the actual percent in terms of what our spend was. It was, as Kathleen mentioned, below that, and we can get you the exact percentage on that.
Well, and again, Commissioner Burroughs, I think it's important that the public knows how prudent we're being with these dollars. And that's the purpose of the questions, to ensure that it's not seen as a grab, that we are actually utilizing these dollars for the purposes that they were intended. And so I felt it was important to ask those questions. So thank you.
All right. I'll move on to the next slide, but feel free to interrupt me. I'm in that awkward position of not being able to see beyond my presentation. This is another bit of data that was requested by a few of the commissioners. This is a kind of snapshot of what other jurisdictions have received in terms of recovery funds. So you can see, based on kind of the cities and counties and community college and Donnelly College here, kind of how that money was distributed, and then the differences here in the school jurisdictions kind of based on need, how the money was distributed. And then this just gives us a comparison across several counties and cities in the metro area. So I'll pause in case there are any questions for mostly Ms. VonAchen. All right. We'll move on then. So that
Commissioner Johnson does have a question.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for this information, Ms. Hand. So do we know that the ARPA fund, for instance, in Johnson County and Jackson County, do they include all of the various jurisdictions within those categories? So we have ours broken out. We don't give a
No.
sum total of them all. But I
No.
just wonder, okay, so they do not.
Mm-mm.
So
No.
there are other funds within Johnson County and or Jackson County or any of the others that are not included as a result of, or in that particular area, right?
Right. I mean, the unified government we're effectively two recipients because in fact, we're two legal entities, being that we're the city of Kansas City, Kansas, and we're Wyandotte County. So that's why there were two allocations made to the unified government. But Johnson County, they're just one entity and they got one allotment. So,
Gotcha.
for example.
I do see Lenexa and Olathe and Overland Park and Shawnee broken out, but I was just more concerned about the school districts and things of that nature.
Right.
Thank you.
I also think it's important to note here, this is Ashley Hand, Director of Strategic Communications. This is the local recovery funds. This is just one portion of the total ARPA bill in terms of where there are other resources and other funding opportunities to come. So there is quite a lot of speculation about how those programs will roll out. They'll be implemented across many different federal agencies. And so as Ms. VonAchen mentioned, the fact that we now have the support of an internal grant team and a consultant to help us, I think we're we're really thinking forward in terms of how can we make sure that we're ready for those opportunities as they come online. So more to come that we should be anticipating. But in the meantime, we also wanted to make sure we just kind of provided a little bit of a reminder on where we're at with that local recovery funds to date. So we started off with that kind of two-part allocation per our legal entity status, as Ms. VonAchen noted. And then based on the calculations of the impact of the pandemic on our previous budget, there was an element of money that was used for what's called revenue replacement. So basically, this money was set aside from the ARPA local recovery fund to cover that money that was lost in our 2020 budget. Then in August, you approved expenditures for some of our immediate needs. And this included, most importantly, our ongoing efforts to sustain our public health crisis and really be on the ground providing vaccines and boosters now, as well as testing, contact tracing, and many other services that have been essential to our community. In addition, there was specific funds that were set aside for housing needs and utility assistance and small business support. And that all came out at this point here, this about $14 million in the immediate needs funded by the county on this side and in the city on this side. And so where we're at today is this money here, about $31 million, about $21 million from the city of Kansas City, Kansas, and $10 million from the county that are unallocated. From this money, we did pull that recent incentive to get our workforce vaccinated as an incentive. A small dollar bonus was offered to hopefully ensure that we can provide continuity of service as we get into the flu season and continue to see the COVID-19 in our community. So this is kind of where we're at today, kind of giving you a sense of kind of where the kind of pot of money exists under the local recovery fund itself.
Yes.
So I'll pause
Ashley?
there in case any questions.
Yes, Ashley. Mr. Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ashley, for the presentation and for the rest of the special session. As I told you before, it's amazing how you've been able to synthesize all of our thoughts and into everything that you've done for us. So thank you for that. My question, and more so a clarification to residents who may be watching so that they remember, Kathleen or Doug, can you tell us what exactly revenue replacement is and what have we done with that amount of money?
Certainly, Commissioner, and that is from it fills the category of lost revenue through calculation formulas, which we can go into in more detail if we'd like, but it's one that the federal government put out in their formula that said per that jurisdiction, when you looked at the amount of money you did not receive coming through 2020, 21, and in looking into the future, they calculated we lost, and we're able to plug that hole back into our government. Well, some of it was used just to prevent us from having to dig back into our reserves. An amount of it was able to be in there, so we have a larger fund balance than we would have otherwise had, but we have not designated a lot of it for spending. It'll still be there for us, or we use some of it just for our operating needs to get through the year because it was in fact lost revenue that we did not otherwise receive. Kathleen, I'll ask you to go a little bit better into the detail or explanation of what it is.
Yeah, so the Treasury gave us guidelines for how to calculate the revenue loss. All the jurisdictions in the United States use the same methodology. It basically takes the amount that was actually received during 2020 and compares it with 2019, and then applies a 4.1% increase to the 19 figure. And so that higher number is subtracted from how much you actually collected in 2020. And that difference is what is the revenue loss. And not all revenues are included per the guidelines, only specific revenues that really are used for governmental services, basically. So, so the calculation for the 2021 revenue loss number was included. This is a 2-year amount, so not only for 2021 but also 2022, and so that's all of these figures are 2-year figures because yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Kathleen. Now I'm trying to remember back from when we were budgeting, when we were going through our budget. From the top of your head, if you can't remember, that is completely okay. How much of that is left over and did we put into our fund balance?
Well, so if you remember back about a month ago, we passed the budget, and in workshop number 6, I showed you the financial outlook over the next 5 years. And so you can see that at the end of 2022, the city and the county general funds do have a growth, a slight growth in their fund balance. There is fund balance remaining as a result of this revenue replacement money. But the future CMIP for beginning in 2023 and forward begins to eat away at that. And Commissioner, I'd be happy to resend you a couple of the PowerPoints that we provided during the budget process to refamiliarize yourself with those figures and those projections.
Okay, yes, that would be great.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
Commissioner Burroughs had also mentioned, that this is once in a lifetime money we may or may not ever get again. So I just want to make sure we're spending it where it needs to be and where it should be, and that we as a governing body are watching where those dollars go. So thank you for the explanation.
And of course, you have to keep in mind, it's not just the general fund, because often you just think about the general fund. It's across all the funds. And there were significant drops in various funds, including the enterprise funds, the sewer and the stormwater. So it's across all the funds, not just the general fund.
Commissioner Walters?
Yes, thank you. Similar question. Why is the revenue replacement not considered unallocated funds? We did not include it in the 21 or 22 budget. It's just money that you said is, we're just putting in the bank. And we might spend it in 2023 or 2024 or something. I think it should be at the top of our mind as unallocated funds right now.
So the 2020, so the revenue replacement was deposited into the respective funds where the revenue loss was incurred. And so that occurred during the 2021 and 2022 years. So as part of the budget process. And much of those funds were spent in order to sustain operations. There is a portion of the funds that is remaining in the fund balance, but certainly not I don't remember exactly how much, but we're talking in the $4 to $6 million range across all the city funds, not just the general fund.
Well, so the question is, what do these figures mean? $11 million, for example, in the county. You say some of it has been spent, some of it has not been spent. Why can't we get actual numbers?
Well, I'd be happy to provide you with numbers and I can do that. Yeah.
Well, it just doesn't seem like we're taking it seriously if we're trying to figure out how to allocate these funds and we don't even know how much we have to allocate.
Well, those were allocated. Those revenue replacement dollars were allocated. They were part of the budget process and approved as part of the budget process.
You're sure about that?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner, this is Doug Bach, County Administrator. They show up in the budget. We allocated those into each of those areas, and then final decision allowed for more money to fall down into the fund balance. But that allows us to roll into the upcoming years as we were looking at, as Kathleen noted, some of the capital projects we were looking at. So we're able to cash fund those out as we project them in, as we come into those years and are able to do them. So it does start to bring that fund balance right back down to the level to which you would have us at for the 2-month reserve.
Well, I guess that's why the fund balance was so excessive. But I still don't understand why we're not talking about how to allocate. We're here to talk about how to allocate these funds. Why do we squirrel the money away and say we'll take care of it in 2 or 3 years?
So we're happy to show, I'd be happy to pull together the figures that show how much of the revenue loss money was not necessarily spent at the through the end of 2022 and for all the respective funds. And then you can have that information. So.
Well, okay, if that's fine, but it's not going to be very helpful this evening. That's all.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. At the bottom of this tree, we showed 600,000 was spent for vaccine incentive for KCK and 400,000 for vaccine incentive out of the county. What's the difference between those two? Is it just who the money was spent on? Was there 400,000 for these incentive for county employees versus city employees? Just what was the difference with those?
Yeah, Commissioner Doug Bach, County Administrator. Yeah, that's correct. It's the approximate percentage of employees that work under the city versus the employees that work under the county, and projections to how many will be eligible for that. We are, as we said, we have not officially moved that money into those accounts. We will pay it as employees submit their information and then they are vaccinated. But this is the accounting that we are allocating for, to say we believe there'll be approximately $1 million spent in this area. If we don't have that many take advantage of the incentive program, then we will not move this amount out. But at this point, that's the amount of money that will be coming out of the city side and out of the county side as we're projecting it going forward.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burroughs.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Burroughs at Large District 2. Kathleen, I think some of the questions go to the fact that when we see the lost revenue, 42 million, it takes up 50% of the entire 87 million. And as it was stated by one of my fellow commissioners, that we're not having an opportunity to allocate. You said it went through the budget process, and there are some of us that looked at that and saw some of that backfill and seen the revenue savings that we had in our contingency funds. But collectively, we didn't have a chance to discuss these breakdowns. And I think when you see a total of $31 million available that hasn't been allocated yet, out of 87 million, when 45 million, I'm sorry, when 42 million has already been put in through the budget. These were some questions that were brought up during budget discussion. And I think this discussion points to the fact that there are those of us that didn't support the budget because we didn't feel we had the answers necessary when it come to backfilling the revenue replacement. We didn't have a chance to question why this place lost the revenue. How did it lose revenue? What we were going through the priority-based budgeting. This money hit, and all of a sudden, boom, it was transferred into lost revenue. And I know you gave the overview about the Treasury on the federal side gave us qualifications for doing so, but you give us a formula and we're supposed to trust those numbers. And it's not that we don't trust those numbers. We just want to verify those numbers. And so I do understand the questions in reference to the 42 million. So basically we're allocating right at about 30% of the money that's left, maybe 40% of all the money. And we as a commission have heard outcries from our community of the need that we have. We just want an opportunity to have a chance to fairly look thoroughly at some of these numbers that have been presented. And I know the budget's already been approved, and I will publicly state I did not support that budget because I wasn't comfortable with the numbers, but that was just me. But I think that's some of the concern that we're hearing this evening.
Commissioner Doug Bach, County Administrator. I guess I will just say, remember, a large percentage, most all of the money in revenue replacement was put in because we needed revenue. We lost revenue. Remember, as we were building the budget in 2020, and I came to you and we were taking very evasive maneuvers and we were anticipating eating into our fund balance a lot in different areas. Plus, we were cutting back on our staffing and where we were going with that. So one is we didn't end up eating our fund balance way down below what the acceptable fund balance level is. We put it into our account, so we kept our rainy day fund available, and it was able for us to be in. So that's the largest percentage of that, a very fiscally responsible move made by the governing body as we dug into the budget and went through the detail of these. Then there was a little bit more. We went from a 2-month reserve as to what would be projected to be a 3-month reserve is what we looked at it going forward into 2022. Was that wrong, Kathleen? Didn't quite hit that?
No, we hit the 3-month reserve at the end of 2021, but not in 2022. It dropped back down in 2022, by the end of 2022. Okay.
So, I mean, the big part of that answer is we lost revenue and we needed it to fill the gap from where that revenue was coming into it. And we tried spending a fair amount of time going through that. And it put us in as we went through 2020, we were taking action. We were hoping so we wouldn't dig ourselves in a hole. But we were going to be in a place where our fund balance was much lower than we wanted it to be. fortunately, through the ARPA money, we don't have to take and spend a lot of our money each year to build our fund balance back up to what would be an acceptable level to go through during the course of the year. And we can certainly dig back into the budget. I know we will be digging back into the budget to show where those numbers are as we start to look forward. Our intent in looking at where we're at with the unallocated funds is the lost revenue is an allocation of an area where we can designate to go with that money. And that's where the commission elected to put those rather than just let our fund balance fall off the wayside. And now this money that we're looking at tonight, that basically the 31 million is money that there has been no direction given as to where this money should be expended in which area or finalized anyway.
And Mr. Bach, I understand that, and I appreciate your explanation. We were going through the priority-based budgeting process, and we didn't have a chance to finish that process. And so I guess some of the questions a few of us might raise in looking at the budget is, how do we know those revenues were lost? Was it just inefficiency on our side? Was it a lack of revenue coming in? Was it decisions that were made during COVID to cause some of this loss? I mean, those are some of the factors that we want to take into consideration because we recognize the needs of the community and they're multifaceted. And we want to ensure that we have the most money available and the best opportunity to allocate them. And if I may, I just would like to say I'm really pleased to see that we have a person doing grants to reach out and utilize any of these monies to bring in additional dollars, whether it be from federal sources, private philanthropic sources, or state, regional sources, whatever they may be, to ensure that we're getting the best return on the investment of these dollars. But I think some of the questions is the fact that, one, we've been operating remotely quite a bit. And when we see a large amount of money put into lost revenue to replace that revenue, but we don't know if it was our inefficiencies because we didn't have a chance to finish this priority-based budgeting, as I stated. So that's just some of the background. Please don't take it any more than that. We're not trying to be argumentative. Those of us that are questioning the budget, we're just trying to do what is prudent, and that's to ensure we get this money into the categories that we feel is necessary to move our community forward and address the myriad of needs throughout all of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will we'll pull that detail up and submit it all to you.
Okay. Well, let's shift the conversation. Again, this is Ashley Hand, Director of Strategic Communications. We had a really great conversation during the last session where you really helped kind of take the commission priorities and hone them in on what does it look like when we apply them to the lens of the world that we're working on now, living through COVID-19, but also really focusing on our recovery. And based on the input that you provided, and I was able to circulate this to you in advance, and I hope that we were able to encapsulate any of your feedback. If there's anything here that you don't agree with, please let me know, and we will make a point of opening it up for discussion. But I'm going to run through the values, vision, and goals as they've been restated based on the input that I've heard over several direct conversations with the commissioners, but also as a product of our workshop just a few weeks ago. So starting with the values, and these are kind of the guideposts that we want to apply as we make decisions as an organization across the community and partnership. But most of the first value is really focusing on supporting more equitable and inclusive future to ensure our community is an affordable, safe, and sustainable place to live for generations to come. So this builds on a conversation that I think is ongoing about how we define the term equity, and that is something that I'll raise in a little bit, but also I think incorporates a lot of the sensitivity to preserving and protecting the existing community while growing our community for the future. And so the other value that you expressed is that you invite collaboration and partnership with our community in addressing our greatest challenges by working transparently and focusing on our greatest needs, and direct staff to do the same. So recognizing that we can't do it all, that there are a lot of opportunities out there, and we will need many folks, all hands on deck, to really build a future that we are all excited about. The third value is really about embracing bold, creative solutions to proactively and quickly transform the way that we work as an organization to support our community and its recovery from the pandemic. So this was extracting some of the sentiment that I heard in terms of being willing and open to trying different things as part of our approach to our recovery, but also that we wanted to see things happen with immediate benefit and supporting the community as a whole. And then the final value statement is that we prepare for the future and understand how our investment impacts social, public health, economic, and environmental outcomes in our neighborhoods. So this is speaking to the theme of resiliency that we heard from several commissioners during the last workshop, but also really understanding our return on investment across multiple indicators, not just economic, but these social and health and environmental outcomes as well. Then from that, based on the input that I heard, drafted this rather wordy vision statement, but it does try to encapsulate that future state that we're working towards, where Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas is a community that enjoys a high quality of life. Our diverse residents are healthy, safe, and share in the benefits of our growth as a community. We fully understand our infrastructure needs and quickly address problems. We support more diverse, quality housing in our neighborhoods, small business growth, and equitable economic development. And then finally, the unified government and its partners work together to build on the success of our past while preparing us for an uncertain future. Together, we develop bold, systemic solutions with multiple benefits, leveraging our investments efficiently and effectively. From there, we basically had a lot of really great ideas and discussion about what goals we wanted to set for the recovery and what does recovery look like, and how do we start to measure that based on creating SMART goals. And so these three kind of categories essentially emerged from that discussion, focusing on community health and well-being, our infrastructure and built environment, and our organizational and community resiliency. And I think, we have to recognize that some of these goals go beyond the scope of the local recovery funds, but recognizing that we are looking for systemic change, having the opportunity to kind of state what that systemic change can look like, can still help organize that priority-based budgeting approach and methodology as it comes to the specific dollars that are used per the requirements of the local recovery funds. So the first set of goals around community health and well-being address kind of multiple components, obviously addressing the emergency that we potentially face with the ongoing pandemic as well as cold weather coming on. So making sure that we are ready for this winter and continuing to support our pandemic response. The second goal really focusing around establishing a more comprehensive approach, and there was great emphasis on working with our local and regional partners to address the unhoused population that is growing across the region, but particularly in our community. And then fully implement the community health improvement plan to strengthen our overall health and well-being. And as you are all aware, this includes everything from violence prevention and reduction to healthy lifestyles and the built environment. So a very comprehensive approach to thinking through our health as an organization, but also reflects the multitude of impacts across various communities in terms of how we live, where we live, and what that does in terms of determining our health outcomes. The second bucket of goals, which I've shared with you, is the infrastructure and built environment. And this is where we heard quite a bit of emphasis on really understanding and being able to assess what our needs are in terms of infrastructure, how we continue to maintain them, how do we right size them, and making sure that we're mitigating the impacts of our aging infrastructure. Commissioner Markley specifically said, let's get that in locked in by the end of 2023 to help us have a longer term strategy. But that work has already been underway in many ways with the CMIP process and elsewhere to really help kind of look and understand how our infrastructure is sustainable. Also thinking about important quality of life aspects that infrastructure and the built environment contribute to, whether it's walkability or access to amenities. Housing obviously was a recurring theme and really as seen as an important catalyst to our neighborhoods and bringing more private investment into our community, but recognizing that we need diverse housing options that kind of straddle all needs across our diverse population. Then we also identified improving processes to make it easier for small and large scale residential projects to come to Wyandotte County, and balancing new development by making sure that we are lifting up the existing community and making sure that we are improving the quality of life of our most disadvantaged communities. So, making sure that we're balancing progress with and bringing in new residents, but also elevating the quality of life of our existing community. And then the final bucket of goals, just to kind of wrap this up, is really thinking about how we operate as an organization and in partnership with the community, and thinking about our resiliency, not just as a unified government, but the community as a whole. This was in direct response to feedback from some of the commissioners that noted, we know it's not a question of if, but when the next catastrophic event potentially happens. And so being prepared for that, learning from our experience in this COVID pandemic can help move us forward. So preparing our workforce and the community for those future disasters is important. Making sure that we're able to respond at the neighborhood level to create impacts across those triple bottom line indicators. Building trust and accountability with our community through this kind of rapid deployment of these funds and inclusive reinvestment. And then finally, making sure that we continue to work towards our ongoing fiscal sustainability so that we as an organization can continue in service to the community. So I've just covered an awful lot for you, and I hope that you all received my email with the URL to respond to the interactive component of this workshop, which starts in the next slide. If there is anyone who did not receive it, please just let me know right now. Otherwise, we will go into the interactive component of this workshop as we wrap up our conversation around goals.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian McKiernan, Commissioner District 2. Actually, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate getting the information for tonight a day ahead of time. Much appreciated. However, it does lead me to make the following observation. This is not necessarily a question. In these slides, I think you've done a nice job in a bullet point format of kind of distilling some of the ideas, some of the objectives, some of the directions that we collectively have talked about. And yet when I get to your pick 3 slides, which are coming up in a minute, I don't find a parallel choice that really matches some of the wording that you've used here in your bullet points.
Well, that's because that's how I ensure, Commissioner McKiernan, that I am valuable to this process. I have to walk you through what those slide content is about. That is more around the strategies that we could potentially tackle and identifying, what the commission sees as key opportunities for us as a community to kind of take on in terms of how we approach meeting these goals. So once we kind of go through this kind of validation of the goal statements, then those kind of, you pick your top 3 is much more about the kind of how do we get there? What type of strategies would you like to see us explore, dive into deeper, reach out to the community on, and understand much more specifically, because obviously there are a lot of different ways that we can tackle these issues, and getting your direction on some strategies that you would like us to look at as a commission can certainly help hone that process much more quickly. It also opens up the conversation with our community by giving the opportunity for the community to weigh in on the types of strategies that we are considering. Otherwise, it becomes a very open-ended conversation and very difficult to really kind of understand from a data-driven perspective because it becomes very qualitative. And so this will allow us to get a little bit more insight from our community engagement process, which will be rolling out full force following this workshop.
All right.
And Commissioner, full disclosure, when I had to send the email with the link to the polling tool, I was shuddering that it was at 4:30 this afternoon because I knew that I had missed the opportunity yesterday.
No, you had all the text of it. in what you sent
So
us.
close.
There was no need to have that link early.
I just should have had it all together. So my apologies.
Ashley, to be clarified, you want us to go to the link, or will there be a link through this? You want us to go to the link?
If you go to the link and open up your screen, and you can just watch that, and it should cue the slides at the same time. So if you go to the polev.com URL that I provided, and what we'll do is we'll do a little test of it. So get everybody there. And you should see this on you should see a soccer pitch on your screen. And this is just a test. And all you have to do is click where on the field you would choose to play. And you just use your cursor to draw a pin. There you go. Someone's dropped one in already. Excellent.
Ashley, Commissioner Burroughs, I don't know that I have the email to participate. If you could send that to me again in my WICO email.
Yes, absolutely. I will do that right now. My apologies, Commissioner Burroughs. I note that we don't have any bystanders at this point, where everyone's on the pitch. It's good news.
Ms. Hand, this is Commissioner Townsend.
Yes.
If you make one selection, can you make another? I want to make sure I'm making some at all.
You, on this exercise, I don't remember if I locked it down to just one.
Okay. Well, then I guess you got me. Okay.
We'll take your word for it. But we'll make sure we'll be able to see a little bit better with the next one because it gets a little bit more specific. And Commissioner Burroughs, I hope you've received the email.
Ashley, I'm looking for it now. Thank you. It hasn't come through yet. Nothing yet.
Okay, if you go to polev.com,
Okay.
it'll pull up and enter a name, and you just type Unified Government 123. Oh, and actually, here you go. Magically, it says it right here, at the top of my screen. Get that thing to go away again. All right. See another pin drop. Is anybody else having trouble getting access to this? Because once we get through this little exercise, I think it'll be pretty straightforward moving to the next one. It's just a straw poll on the goal statements that I recited.
Now, this is the difficulty. When I'm on here, I will not be able to see the presentation and recognize questions.
All right.
Mayor, I'll be able to continue to see questions. So if someone hits one, I'll let you know.
All right, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Well, maybe I can if we'll see here.
And the good thing is that the poll survey will follow the same thing on the presentation. So as I advance to the next slide, you'll see the change in the survey tool. Okay. Is everybody comfortable with the tool? Can we move forward?
I think we only
Awesome.
have 10 on the board, don't we? Still one short?
One short.
That's probably me, unless this is Commissioner Burroughs. Sorry, I put my pin in the goalies box. So
Awesome.
if that's not me, please let me know. I'll take the other side goalie box. For whatever reason, I'm having some difficulties.
Okay, well, if you have trouble in the next one, Commissioner, please let me know.
Commissioner Mike Kane, I don't like doing stuff like this.
Ms.
Yes,
Hand,
Commissioner. I
Commissioner
appreciate
Townsend,
that.
I thought I dropped that goalie in the right early on, so I don't know.
Here, well, let's see what we've got here. Oh, I'll be able to tell you where you were after this. Let's just keep going and see how this goes for the next one. This is basically just a straw poll based on, we've had one workshop to date. We had some follow-up conversations with those that were available for that. But I just want to kind of, you can drop pins on, how about this? To make it simpler, if there is a goal statement that you prefer to discuss and pull out and not advance kind of as a good package of all the things that we've heard so far, please drop a pin on it or just call it out. And let's talk about that now so that we can kind of continue to finesse these statements, but really get them locked in so that it provides the guidance that we need for the priority-based budgeting process.
Ashley,
So-
Commissioner Bynum, did you
Yes.
say if there's one we don't want?
Yeah, if there's anything that you would like to talk about further because you're not either clear on it or you don't think it fully encapsulates any of the issues or ideas that were mentioned over the last several weeks of discussions.
Okay.
Commissioner Kane, I invite you to speak up if you wanted to speak to anything that you'd like to talk about further, if you're not satisfied with where we're at on these statements.
Okay, thank you.
So Ashley, it says any goal, so we hit one under each column because I hit it once and it only allows me to do it once.
Well, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Mine says you can only respond once.
Okay, well then, if that's not going to work, then what we're going to do is we are going to speak to this. If it's not something's glitchy in the back end, and that's probably my fault. So maybe it would be better if just to hear from any of the commissioners, if there are any kind of concerns for any of these statements as they are currently written, anything else that you think is omitted or missing from this. This is a great opportunity to make sure that we bring that feedback in at this stage in the process, because these goal statements will guide all decisions kind of moving forward.
Ashley, it's Melissa Bynum. I accidentally pinned the organizational and community resilience top heading.
Okay.
And now if you can clear it, I would be able to read it better. It kind of muted the.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's see what I can do here.
Okay.
And Commissioner Markley has her hand up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a question. I think in the middle column, the second one from the bottom about developers for large and small scale residential, I kind of feel like that falls under the one above it. And maybe that's just me, but I feel like maybe it's not a separate goal. Maybe it's a strategy to achieve the goal directly above it about diversifying housing options, but
Okay.
I'm not against it. It's just, I felt like maybe it was more detailed strategy of the one above.
All right, awesome. I will make note of that.
So would you want to go through and ask each commissioner what their, under each column, what their priorities are? Is that what you're asking?
Well, what I think, I just want to make sure that if there's anything in here that you're uncomfortable with or is missing, that we remove it or add it at this point. This is it is intentionally a restatement of what I heard from the first workshop, but there was a lot of information that I may have not gotten everything the way you want to see it. So I think if you would like to kind of call out what you think is most important, I think that would be very helpful to us. But I think we can also, look at this in the context of your overarching commission priorities and through the strategies that you would like to pursue. So Mayor, I'd leave it to you if you would like to hear more from the commission on how to prioritize within these goal statements. I'm totally comfortable with that and be happy to facilitate.
I guess we would just have to do verbally what we were going to do virtually or digitally.
Right.
So let's
Yes.
why don't you just use that same process?
All right.
Commissioner Ramirez has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Carol. I don't think a lot of these need to change. I think you did very well again at synthesizing all of the information that was given. But I would agree with Commissioner Markley that I do believe the two that refer to housing they're saying the same thing.
Mhm.
And I would personally like the third one from the bottom, the third one from the bottom. The adopted comprehensive strategy to develop sensible, sustainable, affordable, and diverse housing options. I think that one would be the best one to use because it's broad enough as a goal, and then from there we can develop strategies within that goal.
Excellent. I think that's, yes, I think that's a good call on both parts, that is it's somewhat redundant. And so I can definitely consolidate that and emphasize it's really about making that comprehensive strategy that would include the possibility of process improvement as an action item.
Commissioner Burroughs has his hand up.
Ashley, Commissioner Burroughs, District 2 at large. I have no concerns over the organizational community resilience, community health and well-being. The one I'm struggling with, kind of like my colleagues down at in the middle option, infrastructure, from the bottom.
Okay.
Improve processes. I mean, this is something since we became a unified government that has been strongly advocated for over the last 20 some years. And it almost rings hollow with me. I would like to see it, but it just rings hollow with me. It's not like there's really a lot of sentiment to it. I think just the comment above, adopt a comprehensive strategy, I think that takes away I think that falls in line with building trust and accountability. And if we throw this out there again, continuing to state that we're going to improve processes when it's been 21 years and we still struggle in getting things done. I mean, we've made some advances, but that's just one that I struggle with personally.
Okay, great. Thank you for that feedback. Would any other commissioners like to weigh in on any of the goal statements here? Or should we move forward and talk about strategies a little bit?
Move forward. This is Bynum.
Thank you very much. All right.
Any other
So,
hand, Ashley?
oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, I can't see who had it.
I said I don't see any other hands.
Oh, okay, excellent. Well, that's good. I heard hand and makes me take a double think.
Sorry.
All right, now this one, you should be able to select 3. And what this does is encapsulate several of the strategies that we heard in our discussion at the last session, as well as strategy recommendations that came from our own team across the unified government. So, we do a lot of thinking about best practices from other cities and other communities, but also, recognize that there's opportunity to try some really innovative ideas here. Now, there are obviously limitations to how our local recovery funds are spent. So not all of these are necessarily eligible, but when we think about kind of the systemic impacts that we're trying to create, sometimes these kind of very specific tools can help open up a lot of that systemic opportunity, and it becomes an opportunity for us to fund that with ARPA. So we just have to get very specific in terms of what we want to accomplish so that we can look at how ARPA can fund that. So I can see some pins already growing. So please pick your top 3 for community health and well-being. Great. And Commissioner Kane, I know you don't like this tool, so please let me know if there are things that I can mark as your preferred strategies that you like. I'd be happy to track that so it's incorporated into the summation of this workshop.
Okay.
Ms. Ham, this is Commissioner Townsend. Is there a delay? Can you hit this? Because I'm hitting it, but I don't know that it's actually.
Well, what we could do is if you're concerned it's not showing, we can I can look at the back end of this after the session and make sure that everybody has something tallied here. But we can also, as we kind of review what the leaders were around this, and actually it seems like we have a pretty high concentration of votes for a couple of different strategies to explore more deeply. Oh, and I see we're still seeing it. So Commissioner Townsend, there may absolutely be a delay.
Yeah. Well, just for the record, I did hit A, B, and C. But
A, B, and C. All
while
right.
I was hitting these, then nothing happened, then I'd see something bump up, but I don't know if that was mine from a delay or another commissioner.
Commissioner Bynum has her hand raised.
Thank you. It's Melissa Bynum. I once again have misused the tool, and that's my little green pin out there in the blue ocean. I was going to place that on item E.
Item E. Great. Thank you for clarifying that. All right. So it looks like there's a couple of areas where you would like the unified government to kind of move forward in terms of exploring these strategies. And I'm using that kind of all inclusively, the commission and mayor and community, as well as unified government. But it looks like to me that we're very close on item A and item C as top strategies. Item A is providing our unhoused population with co-located resources for the upcoming winter in partnership. And then C is a little bit more long-term, which is improving our zoning and code enforcement, education, and outreach, as well as work at the neighborhood level to take ownership over some of these issues, because there's limited capacity for us as an organization to do all these things at the neighborhood level. Does anybody want to speak to why they supported one of those two strategies?
There are no hands raised. Oops.
All right.
Commissioner Townsend raised hers.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend, District 1. I just mentioned, I don't know if the pin was effective or not on A, B, and C, and it looks like B and C, from what I can read, are about neck and neck or tied.
Right.
But I'll say one thing that seemed to me, in all three of these are recurrent situations: housing, food, and improving the quality of neighborhoods and life with the code enforcement and zoning issues. We hear this continually. I know I hear it from my constituents. So those are the three things that we seem to always have issues around, and how to allocate budget monies to make these situations better or improve them. So that's it.
Excellent.
We have Commissioner Markley.
Thanks, Carol. I was just going to speak to item C. It will not shock anyone that I have a marker on item C. I think this is just the continuation of the efforts and focus that we've been putting toward these types of problems through SOAR. You know, it's something we've seen success in, but we still have a long way to go. And I think the successes we've seen are really encouraging in how they have improved our neighborhood. So I think it continues to be a need and an area we need to focus on.
Excellent.
And we have Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Carol. First question, Ashley or someone on staff, can you clarify exactly what J encompasses?
I think this was in response to some feedback that we heard at the last workshop where really thinking of like if, for example, if code enforcement was the number one thing that you wanted us to address as an organization, do we rapidly scale up so that we can kind of do a full sweep of those issues, kind of clear out all of the backlog and through education, obviously, probably increasing some of the request for enforcement, but really looking at if we were to really prioritize one of these actions, should we add people to make sure that that's happened? Because there's, as you know, for example, the team that mows all the medians, for example, there's just limited bandwidth to do that with the number of people and equipment that we have. So whether or not we want to double down on that was the kind of a strategy that had been discussed.
Okay, thank you. I picked A and C, but I also picked I. I think that one is as important because we have all these master plans around our community, and we know we need to do a better job of ensuring everything that we do and every project that comes along that fits with the master plans, and what can we do to make those master plans happen and continue. I know that it takes time and it takes years. It's not going to happen in 1 or 2 years, but let's start investing more in our master plans. So that's why I chose it as my third.
Thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook?
Yes. So I picked J because I really do believe that we can accomplish a lot if we pick strategic areas to work on and take care of it. So our community actually sees us doing something. Even though we do a lot, they don't necessarily see it. And so I'd like for us to be able to emphasize something so they can see it. Thank you.
And Commissioner, I think that opens up the possibility not just for this strategy, but it could also be a way to evaluate opportunities as part of the kind of priority-based budgeting. The visibility of the project could be a way to score it, to help as one of many factors to look at.
Yes, and that is important. Whether we like it, it does matter if people can see that we're actually doing something. A lot of the things that we do are not readily right in front of them, so they don't notice. But they do need to see that we do want the best for our community, and by letting them see it and responding to what they've seen will be very helpful. Thank you.
Excellent. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend, District 1. With two of my colleagues already identifying, was it J or I? This is so little, I can't see. Projects is identified in area plans. J and B then are cousins here because when you look at what B says, there's an example. We talk about the desired grocery store in the Northeast community. That was one of the big asks and fundamental rocks of the Northeast Master Plan. So I think it's worthy to note that B and I are related in the objectives here.
Absolutely. There will inevitably be some overlap with some of these strategies. I think figuring out kind of what that investment is, what the role of unified government is, and then what funds do we have from either the ARPA as it currently stands to support that. I think those are decisions that we'll look to the commission to guide us on. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Ashley. Commissioner Harold Johnson, District 4. Number D, or item D, letter D, is that really speaking to the concept of fighting against gentrification in our neighborhoods as we are redeveloping them?
Yes, and I tried, and I probably did not do a good job kind of phrasing it, but I did try to kind of encapsulate that we want to make sure that we're investing in the people that are here too. and making sure that they can stay and continue to live and love and thrive in our community.
Right. I think a prime example is what was led by Commissioner Townsend on Tuesday with regards to postponing the tax sale that, certainly will get us through the winter time, but also helps us to address issues of persons that are not able to pay their taxes such as they are right now. So I certainly, although looks like I'm the only one who put a dot there, wanted to make sure that I was clear in understanding what that really meant. So thank you.
Excellent. And I can do a better job of restating it, but I will also appreciate the feedback. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
All right. Are we ready to move on to the next one? Commissioner Kane, I just want to make sure if you wanted to weigh in on anything that you would like us to prioritize among these strategies, that I make sure I heard your input.
Good.
All right. Oops. Okay, this also is the next goal set of infrastructure and built environment. So here, ask you again to please select your top 3 so we can just start to see where the concentration of interests are in terms of prioritizing the different approaches to tackling this goal area.
Commissioner McKiernan has his hand raised.
Oh, Commissioner. Yes, sir.
And I can hold this until more people have responded, if you'd like. I just have an observation about 2 of the choices on this list.
Okay. I think, no, go for it. You might change somebody's mind.
Well, I find that I and K are overlapping in many ways.
Okay.
Both are, I look at both as infrastructure. So to prioritize infrastructure investments that complement other efforts to improve neighborhoods. Well, part of that is catching up on deferred maintenance, which is K.
Mm-hmm.
So
combining those strategies, basically.
I picked I, but I see a lot of overlap with K.
All right. I think that would be easy enough to combine as a strategy, that you catch up on deferred maintenance and use that as a catalyst for neighborhood improvement.
Thank you.
This is Mayor Alvey. I would also say that D and M would work together. If we invest infrastructure above current spending levels, that will minimize the volatility and rising costs of infrastructure.
Excellent. Awesome. I will do that. Commissioner Kane.
I like number C.
All right.
It's got everything that the community's been asking for quite some time.
Okay. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend, District 1. I don't believe I have a delay. I guess I'm just not doing this the proper way. So for me, C, for the visibility, several of the commissioners on the previous slide talked about that. And as Commissioner Kane said, there are a lot of asks here. So you have high profile asks and just what's needed in a lot of areas. And I also thought that there are a lot of cousins here with regard to the infrastructure.
Yeah.
as Commissioner McKiernan mentioned, and also Mayor Alvey. So I, M, K, and D, they're all interrelated with regards to infrastructure.
Okay, excellent. And, you know, we have to recognize too, and I know Ms. VonAchen would remind me, the local recovery funds are limited in terms of how they could be spent on specific types of infrastructure, as you are aware. But with things like the infrastructure bill and other areas of ARPA funding in the future, having that in kind of the part of our prioritization strategy will be useful. So thank you for weighing in on this. Does anybody else want to kind of weigh in on any of these strategies that they'd like to see us kind of move forward in this conversation? Well, I think we've seen a fairly covered field here because of the number of cousins per Commissioner Townsend's qualifications. So I think that's something to take back and retool a little bit to make it a little bit more clear cut. But this certainly helps me kind of understand where you would like us to kind of think through some key opportunities to implement the goals around our infrastructure and built environment. I'm going to move to the final set of goals where I would love to have you weigh in on this last set. What are the strategies you would like to see us in terms of our organizational and community resilience? I can already see that there's learning already happening as the pin got dropped and taken away. So I can see somebody's figured out a tool function. We'll get there. And then I promise I won't subject you to too much more of this.
That was me, and I clicked the button just to see what would happen.
There you go. And it worked. Excellent. I'm glad to hear. All right. I think we're seeing quite a bit of there's a lot, and this definitely came up in the discussion around making sure that we can match funding opportunities as with this, using it as seed money or matching funds to maximize all the dollars that we spend. So that definitely seems to be a front runner. Would anyone like to speak to something that they prioritize? Commissioner Markley.
Thank you. I was just going to speak to item H, the facilitating ideas exchange. I think one thing that we saw success with really in the CARES Act situation is that we basically said to everybody, what do you want to do? What ideas do you have? Where should this money go? And I think we got back some ideas that were that we wouldn't have come up with on our own. Let's put it that way, that we were able to fund and that made a difference. So I really would love to see us focus on the ideas and not so much the funding. I think it's easy for people to see the dollar signs and say, oh, we have all this money. Let's figure out how to spend as much of it as possible in our department. And I understand that we don't have a lot of money to go around a lot of times. So people are excited to have a funding opportunity. But more than that, I think if we're going to really revolutionize how this county operates, we need people to bring us their ideas. And some of those ideas might not cost a whole lot. Maybe it's just adding an employee here, or changing how an employee operates here, or changing the way we're organizing something. So it may not be the biggest dollar items, but they might be the ideas that make the biggest impact. So I really would like to see us invite people to bring their crazy ideas, and not just the ideas that cost the most money, which I think is the inclination if we don't sort of specify what we're looking for.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Ashley. Now, I don't think they're cousins. They might be stepbrothers. E and F.
Okay.
Because, yes, we need to routinely and report and share the progress we make. And thanks to you, we do a very good job of that. Our social media is very active. And so I thank you for doing that. But also when we do that, going to E, we need to make sure it's language accessible for all of our, we keep saying, and we always say, Wyandotte County is the second most diverse county in this country. And so, and for us to honor that is to make sure that the information and everything we give out reflects that.
Yeah.
And so those two on this slide, I believe those two are important to me, because we know from last year, if there's information we need to get out, we need to make sure that it gets out to everybody and that everybody has the opportunity to hear it and understand what's going on.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Philbrook.
Sorry, I'm operating off my phone because I'm having issues with dealing with one computer to accomplish this.
Oh, no.
So anyway, so I'm really liking G. And the reason I like G about investing in our human capital is because we have a lot of folks working for the UG in our community. And until very recently, I don't believe they have been encouraged to learn and develop more and actually speak up and become leaders. And I know that our public works group has already established a very robust training for leadership. And there are people that are stepping forward that have not taken that opportunity to do it before. And to have people like that encouraged, that's how we make our community great, is by encouraging those who love to live here, chose to work for the UG and want to stay here, by encouraging them to help us solve our problems, by letting them be leaders. So that's what I have to say about that one.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burroughs.
Thank you. Actually, Commissioner Burroughs, District 2, could you give an overview of A? I'm kind of struggling with that one a little bit, because if that means delegating monies, getting those monies out to organizations that we are responsible for the money, can you give a little bit of overview about A for me, please? I want to be supportive of A, but at the same time, I just want to ensure that if we're going to leverage existing efforts, there's a lot of those organizations already have grants and philanthropic money and receive federal funds and or state dollars elsewhere. And I don't want to see us duplicate those if we can put those dollars and services somewhere else. So could you explain A little bit more in depth for me, please?
Yeah, and I think, Commissioner, there's a couple of different ways this type of strategy could be deployed. So it could be something where, for example, you could almost imagine an evaluation of what's happening within a neighborhood and kind of doing that needs assessment on a very rapid kind of response pace, where we could say, okay, we see these types of things are available here, but there is a major need here that's not being fulfilled. And so we kind of very precisely go in and invest in what that kind of gap is. But it has to build off of what else is happening within the community itself, because it wouldn't make sense to just do one thing by itself. It just won't have the type of impact. But by looking at what else is happening in that context to help make sure that we can kind of amplify the benefits instead of trying to do something by ourselves and kind of without that context. I do think that there's the other idea too, which could be continuing that process of kind of following where other organizations have identified those needs and investing in that and making a light process to make it easier for people to access those funds quickly so that that money is out into the community as quick as possible. I do think, there are others that have responded to this, so I'd be interested to hear on what your read of this as well, but that's kind of essentially what I was thinking in terms of how to, make sure that we put money that continues to move other things forward and help make multiple efforts successful, and being very tactical in how that is we approach that.
Well, thank you, Ashley. I guess my concern was if we're just going to hand money out to those organizations to do this stuff, just so you get the money out there quickly, and then if something should happen and they need additional dollars, I kind of read it that maybe we should, as a local unit of government, just kind of watch what they're doing, and if they need additional funding to make a project move forward, we are to supplant that funding, step in with an additional funding source versus just throwing the money to these organizations to get it on out. Because if we can leverage existing efforts, I'm all about that. I just don't want to lose the opportunity for us as a local unit of government to have an opportunity to better our community within our districts as commissioners. And I think that's extremely important to every one of the electeds, that they see that we are working and we're concerned about our individual districts and the community as a whole.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that feedback. Commissioner Ramirez, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Commissioner Burroughs, for the question, because I did have personally myself as well had some trouble understanding. And maybe for an analogy, Ashley, and please correct me if this is wrong, but would A be like what we did for the CARES Act funding, where we internally allocated and had the criteria, organizations applied for the funding, but we gave the funding to United Way where they could quickly give out that money? Would that be a correct analogy of what A is trying to talk about?
I think to some extent, like the fact that United Way has the function of being able to disperse, for example, that $1.85 million from the immediate needs for housing and utility assistance. They had the ability to quickly put it into 11 different agencies, and you only have one place to go, 211, to get access to any of those services. I think that is the type of capacity that is an opportunity to explore. I think it's, and the CARES did precede me a little bit, so I may not be able to really respond as to whether or not this is comparable to that process, but it is the idea that if there's a gap and a need for a little bit of money to kind of get someone to the next level of success with their plans or their programs, if that is kind of the catalytic money that they need to make to that next level of impact, is that something that we should consider doing?
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Any other feedback on this? All right, well, I want to just thank you all for humoring me with these tools. I know they can be a little cumbersome, but it does help with gathering some of the data and feedback from you. The next next step is really to kind of go out to the community with some of the feedback that you've provided in this framework around goals, and some of these strategies in terms of identifying what else is happening, where should we be looking, and starting to capture some of those innovative ideas. We want to go out to the community and really make sure that they have an opportunity to really weigh in and provide some input into what's happening in their community. We did some general outreach in August and have been maintaining some communication since then, but we really wanted to be able to kind of have more specific things for people to weigh in on, kind of what does this mean and what does this look like? I would like to kind of the next step is kind of up to you as a commission to kind of determine, but I will turn it over to Doug to kind of talk us through that a little bit. But really, a lot of the guidance that you've provided tonight can help us with some of that priority-based budgeting, kind of how do we apply a lens to all of the things that we know that are out there already that people are hoping to get funded, but also to cast an even wider net to other options and other opportunities that we haven't even heard about or explored as of yet, because there just hasn't been the means to capture that input. So if it's all right with you, Mr. Bach, I'd like to turn it back to you to kind of walk us through kind of what comes next, or Mr. Mayor, I'm not too sure, just to make sure that it's clear kind of where we go from here based on the outcomes of this discussion.
Thank you, Ashley. Doug Bach, County Administrator. And this is one where the mayor and I had talked through next steps could be and how to engage the commission at a higher level. And I think, Mayor, I think you had some specific thoughts on that as to how you would move forward with the commission from this part. So I'll just turn it over to you.
Yes, first I want to do is talk about the engage the community. What does that process look like, Ashley?
So we have a, so we've outlined a process and various approaches to take. We also are going to partner with the folks that are helping us as consultants who have the ability to go out into the community with an outreach team to also engage more directly. But this includes a variety of options, including we'd like to do some proactive outreach in terms of webinars and opportunities for people to learn more, hear more about what's happening, where we're at. We have online tools to collect input online, but we also are creating a variety of tools that we can go out into the community in person or via mail and other kind of physical ways to reach out to people, because we recognize that there is a digital divide and not all tools are user friendly. So we want to make sure that that's accessible. So that will include a variety of touch points throughout the process, as well as maintaining reporting on the ARPA website that we've started so that we can provide kind of a regular and routine check-in so that people can see what's happening and where those dollars are going and hear more about what the impact of those things are as we kind of go through this process as a whole. So not just in deciding how the money gets spent, but then tracking the impact of that money as it's spent.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that within these next steps that we do them in a multilingual way so that we're reaching all areas of our community.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Right. So my thoughts on this, the CARES Act distribution allocation, I thought was a good process. There was basically a subcommittee of the commission. And so I have reached out to Commissioner Markley to ask if she would lead up this effort again. I've also asked Commissioner McKiernan and Commissioner Townsend to join in. I also will like to serve on that committee. There is, we could go to one more commission member. So if you're interested, just please email that to me. But what I'm more concerned about is that really bring this back to a special session on a regular basis. That is, first of all, we're incorporating the community input and reporting that back out, and really just reporting back out from the community on a regular basis. So we're just going to be doing the grunt work basically and receiving consistent communications from the commission on what the committee itself is doing. So it's going to be somewhat labor intensive, I know, as the CARES Act funding allocation was, but have more frequent interaction with the entire commission, and we'll just be reporting back to the entire commission. So, but that's why I'm concerned about the the community engagement before we start meeting, that we can get some of that moving forward. Specifically, I see define equity and quality of life, evaluate needs and current resources, identify potential synergies. I'm not sure if that's that's got to be an ongoing process, but again, there might be some things that need to be brought forward at the beginning.
Mr. Mayor, yes, absolutely. And I think clarifying this process and the approach that you and the commission will take in moving the committee forward, we will make sure that outreach strategy and that communication strategy aligns with what you are able to accomplish and when, and make sure that we're not only preparing you with information in advance, but also helping the community come to the table kind of with the latest and greatest information so that they can feel like they're empowered to be engaged with the information that they need to weigh in on their thoughts on these various issues. So we will absolutely design an approach that works along the timelines that you set for the committee and make sure that the right information is out there. So for example, we are working right now on an immediate needs update just to kind of help the community understand where we're at with the funds that have been allocated to date and where those funds have already been put into the community so that people can understand, what happened in August, how it's been working behind the scenes and in the community ever since. So those are types of things that will make sure that we are working in lockstep with you and the committee.
Thank you. Commissioner Burroughs.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Burroughs, District 2 at large. Mayor, would you repeat those that you appointed to the Oversight Committee again, please? Mayor, did we lose you?
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, Commissioner Markley, Commissioner McKiernan, and Commissioner Townsend, and myself.
And Mayor, can you share with us, did any of those serve in the prior disbursement?
Yes, Commissioner Markley did.
Okay. Is there a reason, Mayor, you didn't appoint anybody, the chair of the Finance Committee, to that committee that represents Bonner and Edwardsville?
Well, no, there's just that I wanted to reach out. I felt that these three individuals would do a good job in bringing this back to our commission as a whole.
Okay, Mayor, I think there's qualities and skill levels in other commissioners too, besides just these three. And by all means, I'm not attacking these three. I was just curious as to why Bonner Springs and Edwardsville were not included in the first tranche. And here we are going back and discussing a second opportunity, and neither Bonner Springs or Edwardsville commissioners were involved in that disbursement. And I'm just curious as to why your decision was not to include them in this one.
Well, as I said, there is room for one more individual on this committee, and so I welcome Commissioner Walters or yourself.
Well, Mayor, I'd be more than happy to serve if it's your decision to do so, but I didn't anticipate that. But I do want to ensure that Bonner Springs and Edwardsville are included, Mayor.
Understood. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure we clarify that in the CARES Act team that brought forward those allocations, the city manager of Edwardsville and someone from the Bonner city manager's office both were with us the whole way through that process. And in this situation, I think it's just a little bit different because those two cities have been allocated their own ARPA funds, and the way they would intersect with us here is through our county side ARPA allocations. So I'm just saying all of that for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, Commissioner Bynum, thank you so much for filling in that information. I was going to tell him the same thing, but thank you so much. And they were very, very much involved, and we're very pleased with the process. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. I think that concludes our meeting for the evening. And we will be communicating the next, Doug, just so you know, the next special session will be coming forward with just an outline for briefly present an outline of how we will proceed with this. So we'll need to set aside a time at that next special session.
Okay, we'll work on that, Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes our special session. See y'all at 7.